Hello everyone, welcome to another video where we add one more feature to our existing Bookstore REST API. In this video, we will add custom error handling to our application together with email notifications. So without further ado, let's get started. So we'll be using Express Error Handler. And an error handler is just a middleware function. It's like a middleware function. However, instead of taking request response and next arguments, it takes error request response and next arguments. And it's always must be added at the end of the stack, right? So basically we'll add it here after the error logger, and this is very important. But right now, I'll just create a new file. I'll call it error handler.js. And inside this error handler.js file, I will create an asynchronous function that I will call error handler. Basically here I will have, as I said, error, request, response, and next. And inside this, basically what will be happening is here, if there is an error in our application and we do not catch it with a catch block, with a try catch block, it will be forwarded to this function, and will be this function will be called with the error object as here the first argument. And Express by default has its own default error handler. Basically, when you have an error in your API or in your web application, the Express will notice this. It will send the user a return code 500, so a response with return code 500. And this is also important for your backend because a request that is alive, that is without an answer, that it is currently like ongoing and being processed, does not allow the garbage collector to work on the node side. And as a result, you are in danger of a memory leak. So basically, the memory is constantly being used without the possibility to stop the process that is using it. So what we will do is we will replace the default error handler with our error handler function. So if we get an error, first thing we want to do is we want to use our logger that Visual Studio Code will import for us. And we want to log the error, and then we just want to log the stack. It has a ton of different options or ton of different information you can log, but I just want to grab the stack, right? So this is the basically which shows us where the error occurred. And then we want to send an email, right? Because if an error gets here, this means something went really wrong, and you should definitely get notified if it gets here, right? So here we will have a try catch block. Basically here we will send email and we will create the code soon. And here if something goes wrong, we'll just say not logger, but logger.error, this error. Okay, and then it is very important. So it's crucial here because we'll be replacing the default error handler of Express. You need to answer a request. So basically you need to do response.status 500, and then I just like to add like a short JSON message. There was an internal server error. Please try again. Okay, so the user will get a message or a status code 500 response, and then a message just so that they know that something is wrong on the side of the system, right? So on the side of our API. Okay, and now for the send email. And this is slightly more complicated, although still relatively simple. Let's create a whoops, I made a typo. Mailer.js file. Mailer. I already have JS. And inside this mailer.js, what we'll do is we'll create a transport. So basically something that allows us to send emails. And we'll be using a node mailer package. Therefore, I need a terminal. And here I need to the npm I node mailer. Again, typo. Node npm I node mailer. This time should be correct. and we'll include it. So const node mailer equals require, I can't spell today for some reason, node mailer. Okay, and here I'll call this error mailer. So I'll create like an instance of a mailer, and we use create transport. And now you have a few options here. And basically now what you need is you need an email service. And you just need to have it. You can use, for example, your Gmail, but they recently disabled the possibility to configure like the simple just user and password version of authorization here. So then you need to run into a little bit more of a setup. This is why I'll be using my own email service that I have from Namecheap. So basically here, as you can see on Namecheap, where I'm hosting some of my domains, I think we are also hosting here the one that we have used during the deployment of our To-Do application. You should check out the series if you have not seen it. But here essentially you also have this private email section, right? And here you can basically have your email addresses set up. Right, and here I have my email address, exactly like contact@neverforgetit.net, and this is like a project of mine that I have abandoned since then, but I think it's still up and running. You can check it out, neverforgetit.net. And basically I will just use this email because I also know and have already gone through the configurations here. So let's get back to Visual Studio Code. So for the setting, what you need is you need a host. And this you'll get from basically the email service that you're using, right? So I know that for the Namecheap service that I'm using, and if you have followed my To-Do app series, or you can just now go to Namecheap, I don't exactly remember how much it costs. I think you first need to buy a domain, and then you can buy in this email service, right? Maybe it'll be like $10, like for both. I currently don't remember. But for myself, I will just say mail private email.com, and then on port it should connect on 465 for it to be secure. So basically true. And then for the authorization or authentication, I'll need to pass in a user here, and a user is just the email address. So basically contact.neverforgetit.net from my side, and then the password. So for the password, I will not write the password here because this is the actual password to my email. I'll put it to the environment variable. And that's basically it. Now we just need to do a module.exports equals error mailer. And I need to put the email pass inside of the env file. Okay, I have done it, but of course I won't show you this. So now I'll close the file maybe. So now we have this error mailer, right? And I have created it here as a separate instance. So if you want to add additional mailer that, I don't know, that can be using a different user, different host, whatever, and this can have a different purpose. Like for example, it may be used to restore passwords, to confirm the registration or something like this. So you can have a different mailer, right? Currently you have an error mailer. So this is what will be like mailing the technical team members or the team members who are responsible for the production operations that, okay, something went wrong in your application, you should definitely investigate now. So, okay, we have this mailer defined. Now let's go back to our error handler. So here we are going back to our error handler, and now we can import this error mailer equals require, and now we want to require the mailer. Okay, and now we'll be using our error mailer. So basically I'll just create here like a let mail, and here I will say that the mail is equal to await because it returns a promise, error mailer. This is also why I'm putting it into a try and catch block. send mail. And basically now we have another set of options. Now some of the options you might configure as environment variables so that you don't have to double type it. I'll show you why. And I'll not create very fancy email. I'll just say, okay, something went wrong. Please check out the logs. So here I'm saying from. You can write something a little bit more creative here, but I'll just repeat my email address. Then I write to, and I will just use my email address. And as a subject, basically, subject of an email, let's say REST API error. And then here, text. So this is a plain text. There has been an error in the bookstore REST API. Okay, that should be sufficient. And now you can also specify the HTML. So I will copy the same thing. I'll just put this in, like, I don't know, p tag. Right, so here I need to get this part correct. Okay, that should be it. And after this is completed, I will just say logger error, not logger, logger.error. I will say message sent. And here I will just paste like a message ID. Let's use this version of a string. Okay, and here I will say mail.message ID. This just returns like a message ID. It's not useful for anything, but I just want to return it just so that we have an entry in the log that the message has been sent. And now from this part, I will just say module.exports equals error handler. And we have our error handler. It logs the error to using our logger we have implemented in the previous video. If you have not seen it, check it out. This is the Winston logging video. And we have our functionality to send an email. And we have the third thing, which is the response with status code 500. Okay, now let's go to our app module. And inside our app module, we basically want to do what we say, right? So we want to use our error handler at the very end. So we say app.use error handler. And it has been imported. Okay, so that should be it. Let's currently try to maybe test it. So in order to test it properly, I'll just very quickly create or like a route which says error, right? And just takes like request response. And then I just throw new error. This is custom error. Okay, so I very quickly created this. Now I also need to include the email pass right here so that my macro variable for the email password works. So I need to include it right here and right here. Okay, this should be fine. Let's try to run our application. I should save it. Let's try to run our application. So what we want to say is docker compose. I want to run the normal version, some of the test version, but I just want to the tests we'll of course get. But docker compose app -- build. Because I have modified the docker compose file, therefore I need to build. Okay, it's up and running. And now let's get our test.rest file. Let's create additional call right here using the get method and localhost /error. Okay, and I will send the request. So what we can see is we can see our custom error right here. And we also can see that the message here has been sent. Right, so basically we can see exactly the unique ID of a message. Here we can see that our logger still works. Yeah, it logs the error. Here the problem is even though so we are basically now logging the error twice, right? One in the error logger and once in the error handler, right? So maybe it's even smarter that we go to the error handler right here and we remove this part because this part we are already logging in the error logger, right? So now we have like these two things when we where we deal with errors. But what we have not seen is we have not seen a response, right? And this is not very good. But I think currently it's just an internal error of the REST's client that we are using. It may be, I'm actually not sure. However, what I could see just on my mobile phone actually is that I have received the email. So there everything seems to be working, and we'll actually test if this response is generated correct. So no worries if it's not working. So now where we want to go is we want to go to our tests, right? So here, let's grab the test, and maybe I can quickly show you the email. And here we can see it. This is my Gmail account. So it's actually, yeah, marked as spam, but basically you can see that it is from the address email that we have specified, and it has the correct contents. And like how to basically avoid something like this, I think I will make a video in the future, but this is still to come. But for now, you can see that simply like just sending the emails here works. And for the tests, now let's go to our favorite test folder. Inside the test folder, of course, we create two files. First would be a mailer.js. And for the tests, let's go to our test folder. Here, let's create a mailer.js file. So inside this mailer.js file, what we want to have is, we want to have a describe section that says testing mailer. Inside this section, we want to pass in a callback. And inside this callback, we want to have, first, we want to test for correct exports. This is just something that I like to do. And let's have the mailer instance of mail. Basically, mail is a class inside the node mailer, and if you create a essentially mailer, so like a transport for the mails, this should be an instance of the class. So basically, we will expect that, and expect has been imported. That's good. The error mailer is instance of mail. And we expect it to be true. Okay, and now we need to import the const on the one hand side mail needs to come from, and here I have this on the side, basically node mailer /lib/mailer equals require. Okay, now it's fine. And we also need to import the error mailer, right? So we need to say const error mailer equals require -- or dot app / and then mailer. Exactly. Okay, let's try to run the test. So docker compose -f docker -compose .test.yml app, and then --build. Let's try to do a --build, just so that it builds the image. And later on, if we are not adjusting any docker compose or docker files, we will not have to do any build. Okay, and it's fine. This test case is working. Let's get down to a slightly more complex one. So let's check if sending email on error works. So basically what we will do, right, is we will create a new route. And I think in the logger part we have done so. So exactly right here. So I'll just grab this one. I'll actually grab the whole, or maybe not. I'll not grab the whole before hook, because then I will get lost inside of the parentheses and brackets. And so basically we have a whole new route. And now for this route, we need to say app.use, and we need to use the error handler. So basically I need to apply it once again, and it's been imported. Thank you. I need to use it once again because it needs to be at the end. And if this route is added now, it will be added at the very end of the stack, right? So it would not be handled by our handler. Okay, so this is our before hook, and now let's create this test case, right? And the test case will be email sent on error. We'll make sure we'll use the done here because this will be asynchronous. And actually we'll be making a request, and I think a request we already have here in the logger part. I'll, for example, grab this part. So this will make sure that our request is done, and we want to be doing on not testing throw error, but let's say mail error. Okay, let's make a request on this part. And now for the callback, well, not here. For the callback, I would assume that we can just grab this thing. Now the only thing we need here is we need to slightly change our expectation. So if you take a look right here in our mailer, we are not mailer, error handler. We are logging after we send this email message sent, and this is okay, I think. So basically we annex data that includes, and now we'll be looking for message sent. So we actually are not logging any kind of special ways or special IDs about this email, but we are just logging that it's been sent, right? So theoretically, you might say that it's not working. I would recommend just to set up like a testing email service, or maybe not testing email service. You should test the actual service because these like to break very easily. But you should have like an open mailbox where you actually can send emails during the tests, right? And then you just take a look there if these emails actually arrive there. Because I actually don't know any easy way to now check for the emails, so therefore I'm just checking the logs, which may be not ideal, but it is what it is. Okay, so here we have our test case, we have our expectations now, we only need this logs folder, and if you think the logs folder we have in the logger, if I remember correctly. So basically logs folder equals require, we need to go to /app/logger. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's good. So now let's check this out. We don't need the -- build at the end. Chai is not defined. Yes, that's correct. We need to make some imports. Okay. First of chai, we require chai, and then we also need to require chai HTTP, and here we do chai HTTP, and we need our chai to use chai HTTP. Okay. This is good. I believe we also need fs. So basically const fs equals require fs. Okay, now I will try to run this once again. Once again, we did not change any Docker files, no new packages installed, therefore we can avoid, or we can skip the -- build. And I think now you could have seen a good, basically a good part, right? So here we have that our testing, that in our email is sent on error, so essentially here, this test case took longer than 2000 milliseconds. And the reason being is that we are here sending the error, right? So before we actually get the response, this is how long it takes to actually generate the response if there's an error on our API. And in my opinion, this is way too long. And we can change something very simple. We can go to our mailer, to our error handler. And here we have this await. So what this means is we wait with sending the response to the client until this completes, right? Because this is in the call stack. Therefore, we are awaiting until this email is actually sent, right? If you remember here, we had like the message ID, and then we could log the message ID. But I don't think it's worth it. I don't think we want the client to wait until we send our error email. This does not bring any benefit to them. Therefore, I remove this. And this means that you run into a risk that you actually send an error to the client, the 500, and then there's an error on sending the email, but you will never know it. But I think this is a risk that I'm willing to take to cut the execution time down by a lot, because this can take, like from experience, like 2 to 3 seconds, right? Let's try to rerun the test cases actually to see if this helped. And we can see, right? No more than 2 seconds now, but 672 milliseconds. And I don't know if you could have if you heard it, but this was a notification on my phone that I get a new error, not new error, but I get a new mail. I think I should actually set up a testing mailbox instead of sending this to my actual mailbox. Oh well. We have this test case and this is finished. That's good. Let's now set up another file because we still want to test the error handler. So in the test, let's create a new file. Let's call it error handler.js, and inside this error handler.js, what we want to have is, as usual, describe section. Let's say testing error handler. And this is very important, right? Because if you remember, we are not exactly sure if this response is being really generated correctly or if it is The REST client not really working that well. So now we will check this out. We want to grab the same before hook that we have right here. Whoops, I replaced slightly too much. Okay, we have the same before hook. And we want to throw an error. Let's this time pay attention to what kind of error message we are throwing. Let's say custom error to test error handler. Okay, I don't think that's actually relevant because we will be just, we have the standard. So here in this error handler, we are writing this standard message to the response. So never mind, this will not be so relevant. And here we have like just an IT or test case, correct response after error received. And what are we going to do is we need to grab the whole chai HTTP situation from the mailer right here. So we need to grab this part inside, put it in up here. We also need to get our app. Where's our app? Here's our app. And we also need to grab our error handler. And we then need .chai.use chai HTTP. Okay, and here. Now what we want to do is we want to have like chai, and we can copy this part from right here. Okay, we want to have a different callback right here, and we want to get not mail error, but let's say error handler. Let's copy this part, let's put it right here. Okay, and now first off, we want to expect the status, not status, but response. Then here I need to remove the underscore. And we want to expect response to have status of 500. And then we want to expect that the response body, and now the key is called message, if I'm not mistaken, exactly message, to equal, and now we want it to be equal to this exact testing, or not testing, but this actual error. Okay, here let's have a done, because this is asynchronous. And that's it. Let's check out if we have all the actual imports. We have the error handler, we have the chai, and we have the expect. Okay, this I stop. Let's run this once again. Let's check out if our test cases here will be successful. Okay, we have 62 passing test cases. That's awesome. That's amazing. And this means that we have completed our error handling tutorial. But before we say that we have completed it, I would just like to briefly change it to 400 just to check if we are able to produce a false test case, right? So this should actually fail currently, and we can see that we expected 400 and actual was 500. So this works very well. Okay, I change it back to 500. And this means that we have completed our custom error handling guide. I hope this was easy. So basically, this is very important because don't expect to be watching your errors or watching your services once you deploy them, right? Basically, you need to have some way of notifying you that something got or is wrong with your API. This can be done in different ways. You can have like external separate services that just watch the logs and then basically scrape the logs and notify you in case of any errors. But this, the idea that I have presented to you today is one of the ideas how you can do that. And I hope that you will build something useful based on the knowledge acquired today. And for now, I would like to thank you all for watching. Have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video.